In this lesson, we will learn about the Pathfinder. With the Pathfinder, we can unite different objects into a single object, or we can subtract parts of an object using other objects. So let's begin. This is the Pathfinder panel, and if we can't find the Pathfinder panel on our interface, we can always go to the window menu and open the Pathfinder. We can also use the keyboard shortcut Shift Ctrl F9 or Shift Command F9. Right. So the first option is Unite. So we will select an ellipse, and we will also select a rectangle. We can change the color of the rectangle. We can give it some different color. And now these two are different objects. So now we will combine these two objects into a single object. We'll simply hold Shift and select both the objects and then click on this Unite. So now this is one single object. Right. Then we will do one more thing. We will then check the second option. So here the second option is minus front. So means the front object will be subtracted. The front object will be gone. So let's see. Again we will shift select both the objects and then click on the second option, which is minus front. So we can see here the rectangle is gone, and we can see a cut over this ellipse. Right. So for the next one, we will select two ellipses. We can change the color of the ellipse if we want. Right. We will shift select both the ellipses and we will click on this third option, which is intersect. So what will happen with this? The intersecting part will be released and the other parts of the ellipses will be gone. So let's click on it. So we need to shift select both these objects and then let's click on this intersect. So now see, the intersecting part is the only thing that is visible now, and the remaining parts are gone. Right. The next option is the exclude. The intersecting part will be excluded or will be gone. So now let's click on this exclude. So we can see the intersecting part is gone. Right. So these are the options in the top section of this Pathfinder panel, the shape modes. We also have options at the bottom section, the Pathfinders section. Right. So let's see the first one, which is divide. So here I have selected the polygon as well as the ellipse, and let's click on this divide. So once we click on the divide, nothing seems to have happened, but one thing we need to observe is we can right click on the object and we can ungroup the object. Okay, it appears that this is a single object, but if we right click and select ungroup, so we can see we have divided these two objects into three different objects. So this is divide. Right. So now let's see the next one, which is trim. So again let's just move the polygon so that it intersects the ellipse properly, and we will shift select both the objects and click on this trim. So now again it looks like nothing has happened, but if we right click on the object and select ungroup, So we can see there is some change here. So there is a trim happening. So it appears like this looks similar to this minus front, but if we use minus front, we will be removing the front object. The front object will disappear, but here both objects are visible, but their impact is also visible here. So now let's see the next one. So the next option here is the crop. It also appears like a different option. So here we have this ungroup, so we can see here. Then the next one is outline. So we can get an outline of both these objects. So let's click on this outline, so we can see. So now we got the outlines, and again we can ungroup and separate the outlines here. So we can just separate these outlines. So now see, we have created an object like this, and we can increase the stroke of this object. So we can see here, right? So this is outline. And the last one is minus back. Previously we have seen this minus front. The front object will be subtracted, and here the minus back will subtract the back object. So let's see. So here we will create a rectangle, and then we will also create, let's say, a star. So right now the star is the front object. We can just give it a different color, and we will shift select both the objects, and then if we click on this minus back, the rectangle is gone and its effect or impact is visible here. So this is all about the options inside the Pathfinder. Let's begin with a simple example. So we'll be creating a spanner. So first we'll create a rectangle, then we will also create a rounded rectangle here, right? So now what we'll be doing is we can make this rounded rectangle even more rounded like this, right? Then we can do one thing. We can just select a rectangle here, and also we can just reduce the size of this rounded rectangle. We can change the color of the rectangle in the front, and we can just move it a little bit to the left, right? Now we will shift select both these objects, and inside the Pathfinder we will click on this minus front. So we can see here we got a cut, and now we will just put this rectangle, and then we will also make it small, right? So now we will select both these objects, and then we will now click on the first one, which is unite. It will unite both these objects, right? Now we will use the reflect tool to create a flipped copy of this spanner. So what we'll be doing, we will hit O on the keyboard to activate the reflect tool, and then we will change the center point. We will hold Alt in PC or Option in Mac and change the center point and keep it over here, and then release the mouse. So we got a flipped copy, and we will click on this copy. That's it. And now we will again select both these objects and click on this unite to create a single object. Now this looks like a spanner. We can make it more interesting by applying gradient colors to it. We can do one thing. We can just open the gradient tool. So if at all it is not present here, we can just click on this white black to give it a nice silver color. But there is a better way to apply gradients. That is, there are inbuilt gradients inside Illustrator. If we want a silver gradient, we can simply go to Window menu, and here we will just open swatches. So here we have the swatches panel, and at the bottom of the swatches panel we can find a swatch libraries menu, and from the swatch libraries menu we can go to gradients, and here we have the option metals. So we have the golden metal, the silver metal. Here we can just apply silver metal to this spanner. So we can see we got a nice silver spanner, and we can also adjust the gradient over this spanner. We can hit G to activate the annotator. So we can just rotate it diagonally. So something like this. Right. So this is the spanner, a silver spanner, and if we want we can also give some depth to this spanner. So we can just activate the stroke, and we can also give the gradient color to the stroke, and we can increase the stroke size. So we can see we also gave some depth to the stroke. So this is how we can create a spanner using the Pathfinder. Now let's create this key using the Pathfinder and other options. So we will first create an ellipse. This is the head of the key, and then the rectangle, which is the tail of the key. Right. Now we will unite both these objects and make them into a single object. Right. So our first task is completed. Then we need to create these cuts at the bottom of this key. So we can also call them the teeth of the keys. Right. So for that we will use the polygon tool, and we will just select 3 sides so that we will get a triangle, and we will change the color of the triangle here. So we will just create one cut over here, but this time we will be using this trim option. So with this trim, what we can do is we don't have to remove this triangle object. We can keep the triangle for later use. Right. So we will just shift select both these objects and click on this trim. Now we got a cut. We will use the direct selection tool, and then we will select the triangle and then move it. So we can see the cut. And now we will just again keep the triangle just close to the first cut, and we can check the reference. So we can just follow the reference here, and we will do one thing. We can actually, we don't want the cut to be too big, so we can see the reference here. The cut is a little bit small, and also we can do one thing here. We got some extra points here. We can delete those extra points using the delete anchor point tool. So we can just delete those points. Right. So now we will just make the triangle a little bit small. Right. And here we can use the free transform tool, which is inside the toolbar. The keyboard shortcut is E, so we can make it small here. Right. So something like this. Keep it close to the first cut. Right. And now we will do the same thing. We will just select both these objects, and then we will click on this trim, and again we will use the direct selection tool, and then we can see we got one more cut, and we will continue creating the cuts, and this time we will use the free transform tool. We'll make the length of the cut a little bit big. So we can see the one big cut, one small cut, big cut, small cut, right. So again we will just shift select both these objects, and then here we have the option trim, and we will use the direct selection tool, and then just we can see here, and again we will just complete the cuts. One last cut is there, we can just make it small, just keep it over here, and you can slightly scale it up, right. Now we will again just select both the objects, and then here we will use the trim again and use the direct selection tool, and then just we can see here, and now we can delete this triangle, right. Now we got the cuts, and we can just adjust these cuts. If we think they are too big, we can make them a little bit small. So something like this, right. So it might not be exactly same, but this is all right. So now we will create this particular shape. So for that it's very easy, we don't have to use the Pathfinder. We can simply use the add anchor point tool and just create one point, that's it. And then we can use the direct selection tool, and then just hold shift and left arrow key to just nudge the point to the left side, that's it. So we got the key, and now what we are supposed to do, we need to create a hole here. There is a hole on the head. So what we'll be doing is we will just select an ellipse, we can change its color, and we will place it over here. We can make it a little bit small, and then we will select both these objects by holding shift, and now we will use this option minus front, that's it. Now we got a hole, that's it. And if you think that the hole is not exactly at the center, we can slightly move it and keep it at the center, right. And now we will shift select again, and we will click on this minus front, that's it. Now we got the hole, and one more thing we will be doing is, see, we will give it the key a nice golden metallic look, and also there is one section here, and we can call it the emboss section or whatever. We can create a nice embossed look to the key, right. So first thing is, we'll do one thing, we can delete the reference. We don't have to do it exactly like the reference, we will delete the reference. So first thing here, if we want some nice three-dimensional depth to this key, we can do one thing, that is we will select the key, and here inside the object menu we have the path, and inside the path there is something called the offset path. So here offset path is there, and we will reduce the offset path value. We'll simply put our cursor inside this input field, offset input field, and we will use down arrow so that we can see an outline appears over the key. So this is useful for creating some nice 3D embossed look or some depth over the key. Right, and now what we'll be doing is we will just turn on the stroke, and we can change the color of the stroke to, let's say, black, and we can increase the stroke size, and then we can just move the outline outside the key. First we will delete the circle inside this outline. So we can do one thing, we can right click over this outline and select release compound path, and then we will select this circle outline inside this key outline and delete it. Right, and then we can just apply a silver gradient to this outline, or let us apply a golden gradient. Right, this looks better. And now we will apply a golden metallic look to this key. We want to apply to the fill, we can use the shift X and we can turn off the stroke. So we can see here, now this looks fine. And now we will just move this one, and we can apply a different golden color to this stroke here, and we have to apply to the stroke. So we can see, right, so something like this. And then to make it more interesting, we can do one thing, we can just select this rounded rectangle tool, and we will activate the fill here. Right, and we will apply our custom gradient to it. So we can just apply the gradient. So something like this. And also we will do one thing, we will turn off the stroke, and then we will just use the annotator to adjust the colors, and we can rotate the annotator here, and we can scale it down so we can see the colors, the dark colors and light colors. So something like this. And we will place it over here. So something like this. And we can change the gradient even further if we are not satisfied here. So something like this. This is better. So this is a golden metallic keys, and we can just group all the objects, and then we can just create a background, a nice background here. To create a dark background. And we will just move the background behind the key. That's it. So here we have created a key using the Pathfinder.